Yo, how's it going everyone? Today we're going to be doing a video, believe it or not, on YouTube. I know, rare. We're going to be talking about the Forest Youth Academy in a little bit more detail because honestly I haven't really seen anyone do a video like this before, so no one can say that I'm just doing what every YouTuber does and just copies everyone else. So if you do enjoy this, hit the like button, subscribe to Raz if you know for top-notch content like this. Let's get on with it, shall we? A youth academy is arguably the most important part of a football club because it's the future of the football club. 10 to 1, a lot of those players won't actually end up playing for the senior team or actually make it at the club, but a lot of them will. For instance, Ryan Yates, Joe Wall, Brandon Johnson, Alex Myton, they're all part of the first team. 3 of them, excluding Myton, are regulars and start pretty much every single game. In fact, between them, they've gone on to make 461 appearances since they've been at the club. However, I probably ought to say that that could go to even 465 appearances because I'm recording this before we play Luton, and potentially all 4 of those might play, so, you know, just, you can work that out really, can't you? It's going to be more than that. A massive reason as to why these players have been so successful is Gary Brazil, a man that's been part of Forest now since 2012, had various different titles, youth manager as well as academy manager. He's still that, but these days he's referred to as head of football development, and he's gone on to develop players like the ones I just mentioned, but even players that have since left Forest that have gone on to do even better, or some of them not so much, i.e. Oliver Burke. But as I mentioned, they're the players that we have since sold on. It is thought that we have made up to £50 million on youth academy graduates since Gary Brazil has been at Forest, which is a lot of money for a club in the second tier of English football. So let's take a look at the under-23s and how they've got on. As you can see, straight away, 5-2 defeat to Villa to start the season. A big win there in the Cup, it's being a 4-1 win. A win against Reading, a huge win against Birmingham, then a win against Borough, a draw. I remember that game actually quite well because it was on Forest's YouTube channel. We scored in the very last minute and then somehow didn't win. It was like Reading from a few years ago all over again, which I'd rather not talk about. But then it was a 6-2 defeat to QPR in the Cup, a defeat to Stoke, a defeat to Fulham, a draw there, another defeat, this time in the Cup, again, another defeat to Newcastle, so it was not a good run of form here at all, another draw, a huge defeat to Blackburn, so the Cup is not going well for us at all, and it's worth pointing out. You're probably thinking why they've been losing in the Cup more times than once. The Cup's a group stage when it comes to under-23 football, so that's why. They haven't been knocked out of the Cup 3 times. A win against Newcastle, a draw there, another win. So as you can see, picking up quite a lot here. Look at this, a win against Borough, a huge win against Reading, defeat, and then since then, couldn't really be going any better, could it? 4 wins in a row, so it may have been quite a poor start to the season, first half of the season, but definitely improved an awful amount, hasn't it? And the table, as you can see, 3rd. This recent second half of the season form has really propelled us into the playoff places. Let's actually take a look at the squad, because that's the most important part about this video, really, isn't it? This is the under-23 squad on screen right now. A fancy graphic would have showed you that. The goalkeepers we have are Nicky Horvath, it sounds similar, Nicky Hogarth, and George Shelvey. Hogarth was signed from Rangers in the summer of last year. He's been more than not the first choice goalkeeper, and George Shelvey's actually been around for quite a few years now. He was on loan at Mansfield the first half of the season and it didn't really work out for him. A few of those names even I don't know the greatest deal about, and I have done a lot of research for this video, but it is quite difficult to talk about them when I haven't seen them play, because only way I can really truly see these players and what they can do is via the streams that Forest provide, and they don't stream every single game. However, what you can gather from that is he's definitely a fringe player, so don't expect him to burst onto the scene anytime soon. But more than anything, let's talk about the players that are actually going to have a chance of doing that. Finn Back, obviously, actually had quite a few minutes now in the first team, or at least in the past he has. Start of the season, he got a 90 minutes against Stoke, pretty much a 90 minutes against Blackburn when Jordi Osei-Tutu got injured for the 47th time this season, and then he also played against Middlesbrough on Boxing Day when obviously Jeg couldn't play at right wing back. And big fan of Finn Back. He did look a little bit out of his depth against Borough, but he would do. Aaron Donnelly, been a Northern Ireland youth international before. He scored a few goals as well this season. Unfortunately, he did actually get sent off in a game recently against Stoke City. But overall, I'm a big fan of Donnelly. He's got a very good throwing technique on him as well. He can throw from pretty much anywhere and get it to where he wants it to go. So yeah, look out for Aaron Donnelly. And honestly, when Bong had to play earlier in the season against West Brom, I said please just put Aaron Donnelly there. Gibson Hammond is an interesting one because he's actually classified as a midfielder, but he plays as a right wing back. So I classify him as a defender more than anything, to be honest. But then again, a wing back is a bit of both. But Gibson Hammond, honestly, it's weird. He plays in the same position as Spence. He has a similar haircut to Spence, and he plays very similar to him. So have we got a Jed in the making here? He scored a goal against Burnley. That Burnley game I just mentioned actually scored in that game. I quite like the look of him. If you think of Spence, he's a little bit like a mini version of him, in my opinion. Jaden Richardson has actually been out on loan this season at Notts County. Played 17 times, got a goal as well. He started a few games in the League Cup this season as well. Actually got a few substitute appearances at the very start of the season. And the likes of Riley Harbottle and Bauer Fernandez are typical centre-halves in this team. Harbottle, I'm quite a big fan of him. I've seen quite a few other people say this as well about him. He's a little bit similar to Wall. He's like a Wall in the making. Yeah, that kind of presence about him. He's been captain a few times as well. More often than not, he's captain. Very commanding. So yeah, I like Riley Harbottle. Bauer Fernandez, he's a bit like McKenna in the sense that you don't really want to mess with him. He's a really strong, solid, physical centre-half. Big fan of Tyrese Fornah, arguably one of the most valuable members of this entire squad, to be honest. And he's got a big future ahead of him. I kind of see him as like a cross between, this might sound a bit weird, but a cross between Yates and Garner, because Garner loves to do those long balls. You know, they're just absolutely stunning to watch. I've seen Fornah do it a few times. But Fornah actually got man of the match in the League Cup earlier in the year against Bradford. Looked really good and comfortable on the ball, very intelligent on the ball as well. Yeah, definitely the kind of player you want to have around. He's pretty quick as well. And I do believe Fornah, any one of these players are going to get into the first team one day regularly. I think it's going to be him. Oliver Hammond, another player that I quite like the look of. 7 goals this season from midfield. He actually strangely played more as a winger against Wolves earlier on this season in the League Cup. Whether that was just Chris Hughton not understanding football again, I don't know. Probably yes. Great vision, can do some really good long passing. And yeah, I like the look of Oliver Hammond. Another player that he often plays alongside would be Billy Frewster, who signed from Leeds in the summer and has been quite a regular in the team actually. He got this goal against Villa, as you can see on screen, and he's been pretty solid this season in midfield. Josh Barnes, to be fair, I've not seen quite as much as him as the other guys, but he's played a fair amount of games this season as well, only I don't really see him breaking into the first team anytime soon, to be honest. Savanier hasn't really played that much at all. He actually signed in 2020, the summer of 2020. Hasn't really featured a great deal though. The main one I need to mention alongside obviously Fornah is Atif Konate. That lad has got a lot of potential. I often like to compare him to Myton. He's that kind of player. He's quite technical, very fast, you know, he can mug you off really easily, just like Myton did last season against Millwall, remember. Konate actually got a go in the league briefly this season against Barnsley in that 3-0 win in January. And yeah, I believe he actually hit the post in that game, all but straight away. So hopefully, for his sake, he'll get a few more minutes at some point. But I believe a loan might be good for him in like League One next season. As for the forwards, we've got Will Swan, Julian Larson, Lewis Salmon, and Dale Taylor. Dale Taylor, a bit like McDonald, sorts and changes between the under-18s and under-23s, but I felt it was fair to include him here. Let's start with Will Swan though. Obviously, he's actually played a few games before in the first team, i.e. last season under a manager that should not be named. 2 games off the bench in a row against Reading and Swansea, and what was let's talk about it. A truly depressing. I mean, the whole of last season was depressing, but that was a particularly depressing time to be a Forest fan. He did get loaned out there last season in January to Port Vale, but he didn't do a great deal, to be quite honest. But this season, the top scorer in the under-23s with 12 goals. Very, very good striker at this level. Only, I'm not going to lie, I don't really see him getting into the first team anytime soon because of the amount of great strikers they've got now. Julian Larson. This guy's a baller. I really like the look of Julian Larson. I don't actually know how long he's been at Forest, but he has been here a fair amount of time. I do know that at the very least. But honestly, he's a bit like Keenan Davis in the sense that he just charges at the defence. He doesn't care what's in front of him. He just goes for it. And yeah, really clever on the ball, great little player. I haven't really seen that much of Salmon, to be quite honest, but obviously he has played a fair amount of games this season though, to be honest. But overall, we've got a really, really good set of players here, and I could see a lot of them getting minutes at some point in the first team. Just to give you a better idea about how this team would line up in a game, this was the latest starting 11 taken from the league game against Wolves, in which was a 1-0 win for the Reds last week. And this, apart from Oliver Hammond probably being in ahead of Barnes and maybe Finn Back being a right wing back instead of Gibson Hammond, it probably is the strongest team available, and maybe even Nicky Horgath. But there's nothing wrong with George Shelby. But that really is probably how the starting 11 would shape up. Now, to be honest, I don't really think many people know a huge amount about the under-18s. They probably will know a fair amount about the 23s, but the under-18s is the next level down, isn't it? And there's nowhere near as much content about this level as there is for the 23s. So I'm only really, and this was always going to be my intention, basing this off one game, which is the Chelsea match in the Youth Cup, which I just thought it was such an amazing achievement. And we're going to go over the game in a fair amount of detail now. Okay, so the typical starting 11 for the under-18s, or at least in this game against Chelsea. We have Aaron Bott in goal, who I thought did a really good job, made some great saves. A back three of Zach Abbott. All the Bots, by the way, everyone's called Bott apart from the rest of the team, so I don't know why I said that. Farrell Johnson next to him, as well as Ben Hammond. Ben Hammond is a Wales youth international, actually played a few games already for them. Abbott actually played for England's youth team as well. Farrell Johnson did pretty well. I actually was really impressed with Ben Hammond, a similar kind of player to Wall. Not completely, but some of the tackles that he made are very Wall-esque, in my opinion. Also, Abbott can play anywhere across the back line, whether it's centre-back, left-back, right-back. I love players like that. They're so useful, especially on FIFA when you want to try and redo things. Yeah, I don't know why I mentioned that. As for the wing-backs, Carl McAdam and Josh Powell. McAdam, I thought, did a pretty solid job, can play on the right as well. As for Josh Powell, he can play on the left as well, actually, so they're both very versatile. I thought Powell offered a lot of energy and flair to the game if it went a little bit flat. Very impressive with him, to be honest, and he's a set piece taker when it comes to corners and free kicks, which is always useful. As for the midfield, Sam Collins and McDonald, honestly, it's not McDonald, is it? It's McDonald. Okay, I need to, let's go on Google Translate. Okay, so Google Translate is a liar because it said I was right. Turns out I was actually wrong, and it was wrong because it's McDonaldin, not McDonald. Jamie McDonald, honestly, really impressive. I thought he did a really good job in midfield. I made a lot of notes about him because I watched back this game at least twice, pretty much in full, because it's on the Forest YouTube channel. And yeah, honestly, Collins did well, but McDonald really stood out to me. Just some of the things that he did throughout that game. He's a Northern Ireland youth international, very good aerial ability. He made some great tackles, very, very solid in midfield, and honestly, he was one of the ones that impressed me the most out of this team. As for the attackers, Jack Naden, it was really sad that he had to go off because it was quite a weird injury, to be honest. He kind of just fell over, like back on himself when he was doing a tackle, but yeah, got a lot of energy and flair about him. I don't even know who to compare him to, actually, in the first team, but yeah, very energetic. Dale Taylor, obviously, like I mentioned, what a player Dale Taylor is. He's played, get this, a lot of these players who've played for youth level. Dale Taylor's played for the Northern Ireland senior team at 18 years old. And at the time he was 17. That is mental. I know that Northern Ireland aren't Brazil, but that's still mad to have played for your country when you're 17. He can play anywhere across that front line, by the way, on the left, on the right, or even down the middle. Very impressive. He's brilliant on the ball. Very, very intelligent. Relatively fast as well. And a Sephiroth song, this lad, he's Keenan Davis in disguise. And honestly, very physical. Runs at the defence, a bit like Julia Larson, but particularly like Keenan Davis. You know, he just will not be stopped. As for the bench, the only ones that really need to be mentioned are Justin Hawkes, who's a Wales youth international, and Perkins, who came off the bench, who I thought did a really good job and actually got an assist in this game as well. But let's actually just go over the game briefly, shall we? The first half was quite evenly matched, but Forest ultimately were slightly the better side with the better chances and played some really good stuff against a Chelsea side that are also sixth in their own Southern Premier League division. So two teams of similar levels here. As I mentioned, the first half came to an abrupt end when Jake Naden went off injured just before half time, and that did add on quite a lot of injury time. As for the second half, it was a completely different kind of game, quite frankly, because it was a lot more in Forest's own box, a lot more Chelsea possession, a lot more Chelsea chances, but ultimately Forest still played really well and defended very, very well and played some really good stuff, and it was only because of a deflected shot by Charlie Webster from Chelsea that they took the lead in the 61st minute. So bear that in mind, right? Chelsea took the lead in the 61st minute. Let's fast forward now to the 86th minute, and this honestly was one of the best ends to a football match I think you could possibly hope for, because it was a great bit of work by Saparo Song, capitalised on a poor bit of defending from Chelsea to find Dale Taylor, finished really smartly into the back of the net, and that gave Forest hope of maybe extra time, surely, right? But no extra time. We want to go home and put our feet up. Saparo Song then scored what was a fantastic goal started by Dale Taylor again. Obviously, he scored one and he didn't assist this, but he did ultimately start it. Some brilliant work between Dale Taylor, Carmack Adam, and Jack Perkins, Jack Perkins, who ultimately, some great improvisation for him to find Osong, and yeah, honestly, absolute scenes. And to top it off, he then scores a penalty. So that is 3 goals in 7 minutes. That is honestly ridiculous. But yeah, that was a really interesting video to put together, and hopefully you know a little bit more now, at the very least, about some of the names to look out for. And if you want to have a look yourself, go and watch some of the highlights on Forest YouTube to get a better idea of what these players are all about. If you have enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this going forward, especially over the summer when there won't be quite as much football content to do, but I need to try and remain consistent, I need to do stuff like this, then please hit the like button, subscribe to Rads if you know. I said last time, comment Cooper Ball if you got to the end of the video, and I got a lot more than I thought actually comment, so thanks so much for that. If you got to this stage of this video, let's see if you're listening again, shall I? Comment below if Yatesy scores, we're in the trend. Comment that below right now if you've got to this stage of the video. And yeah, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you very soon. Obviously my Luton reaction would have been out by now, but we've got West Brom very soon. I'm looking forward to that one. So stay tuned for the vlog, and I'll see you very soon.